At a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia, duly called and held on the 26th day of August 2019, second floor, Village Hall, Fredonia, New York, and public notice of the time and place of this meeting has been given to the media and conspicuously posted in one or more designated public locations in accordance with Section 104 of the Open Meetings Law. This portion will begin with a workshop session. The resolutions start with number 1, Fredonia High School Homecoming Parade. Any questions?
Same as usual from previous years, everything will be handled the same.
Resolution number 2 will be Travis Gordon, which will be the replacement for Nate Aldrich. It would be the finishing out the contract that Nate had started.
No.
No.
So this would be just the difference in what we paid Nate?
Yes.
Yes.
Jim, just a clarification, do we have, is there a separate contract? Do we need I believe we probably need a separate contract with that individual?
Yes, there is a separate contract right now. I spoke to the gentleman, he's on vacation in the Rocky Mountains. What I offered him was the same contract that we offered Nate. Basically changing the times, prorating the money to reflect the fact he's only going to be here for 4 months. All the rest of the terms are the same. I did send that to him last week for his review, and he said he would get back to me as soon as he got back. I've talked to Nate about our intention to do that, and he didn't think there was going to be a problem. So tonight, what we would do would be to vote on this gentleman coming in to finish out the portion of Nate's contract under the same terms.
Could we have a copy of that contract, and have we reappropriated the monies for this individual? I know the money was appropriated for Nate, his contract was ended, so I believe.
That's what this would be doing, because if his contract
Okay.
ends, then.
Do we need to reappropriate the remainder of the money for this separate individual and also have a contract that we could review?
Well, like I said, as far as the contract goes,
It's
it's
the
the
same.
exact same one Nate Aldrich had. So if you are interested in the contract before, before this gentleman looks at it, you can see that. All I did was remove Nate's name, put his name in, change the dates, and reflect that he's only finishing off the last 4 months of a year contract.
Okay, and he hasn't accepted that offer yet, is what you were saying?
Well, what I'm saying is that right now he is on vacation. This is his second week up in the Rocky Mountains, so he has limited, but when I discussed it with Nate and I discussed it with him, there was no, well, he hasn't signed it yet, obviously, because the village hasn't offered it. Those are the terms we were looking at.
Okay, now,
That was
nothing
the intent, because they worked together on everything with,
absolutely, I
So,
think it would be a good
that's-
fit. I would just ask to clarify, do we need to reappropriate the funds for this different individual?
well, the request is for the funds of the amount that's not stated in the resolution.
Okay.
So then you would be doing so.
Here's my question, Jim, maybe you'd be able to answer this. Okay, we appropriated the funds to hire Nate, which we did, the $25,000 for the year. His contract was ended, those monies went back, or are still there, but they're not appropriated for Nate anymore. Now, should we reappropriate the remainder of those funds for this next individual to fulfill this job?
The unused balance you can, yes.
But that needs to be done before.
We need to pass a
contract.
resolution to authorize the funds to cover the new contract.
Well, you need a resolution to hire him at a certain amount, and the money would come out of that same account.
Right, and that's what we're doing
We're
tonight,
not,
with the amount.
transferring money or anything like that.
Okay, so you don't have to reappropriate because it's a different
No, the money's been
contract?
appropriated
Okay,
for that line. It doesn't define a person or
okay.
just a
The position?
position.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on that?
And he has his own business, is that what I'm gathering, reading from the resolution?
Yeah, he does have an LLC.
Comes under urban? Vantage
Right,
LLC.
and just for his tax purpose and stuff, he requested that rather than using his name, that we do it with the LLC, but it is going to be the gentleman specifically performing the services.
And he has other employees under himself, or is he a single operator?
There are other people working for the LLC, which is why I want to make sure that he was the one that was doing our work. Because he's the one that's been interviewed, he's the one that was recommended, and he's the one we want. But like I said, there's a lot of things that I'd like to talk to the gentleman about, but he's still up in the Rockies. As far as the contract that's put before you tonight, it's just a Nate contract. And I was also thinking if the board approves the Nate contract, the gentleman is much more likely just to say, oh, okay, rather than trying to, nitpick the terms. Not that he would do that, but from a negotiating standpoint, this becomes kind of here, this is what we're offering, take or leave it. Which I don't think is going to be a problem.
Eventually, I'd have to look back to find Nate's contract, but will we receive a new contract for this individual?
Yes.
Okay.
As soon as he approves of the same, okay, that would be, but like I said, it's the exact same contract. I changed the dates, I changed the names, I prorated the money.
Okay, I just have to look back in our
Yep.
meeting minutes to find Nate's. Okay. Is there any way that when we do hire, whether it's this person or anybody else, I realize last week or last meeting, I wanted to meet with the people beforehand, but at least if we're hiring them, can they at least show up to the board meeting maybe so we could have a face to know when we hire somebody? I mean, would that be kind of something the board would agree upon? That when a person's hired, that maybe the board meeting, I realize that we were passing to hire him this meeting, but he can't, but as soon as he can. Otherwise, I'm never going to see this person unless I have some specific contact with them.
I understand, I think that kind of makes sense, but what if the
What if it
person came
doesn't?
here under the impression they were gonna get hired and then we voted no? That would
Right.
be a little bit awkward.
Awkward, yeah.
Okay, well, how about come to the next board meeting?
Well,
Like this firefighter we just hired.
Oh, yeah,
I'm sure
I mean,
he's-
I think, yeah, that would be fine, but I think it would be,
Okay.
not,
I
you
don't
know,
think
if
it should
someone
be
comes and then
required.
they don't get hired, that would be very awkward and uncomfortable for
yes, I
them.
don't think that'd be.
But I think at the next meeting, they could come so we could meet them would be fine.
So we put a face at least with the
Right.
person that we've never met, other than the hiring committee.
That wouldn't be normally a mandatory request, though, not normally.
No, but it would be a request,
Just
so,
open an invitation.
open invitation to come, so we could at
Please
least
come and
meet the
us.
person that we're hiring.
We openly invite everyone to come. We like, I would love to have all our employees and everyone from the community to come. We openly invite
Absolutely,
them.
but when we hire somebody, and I've never seen this individual, Jim, I would just like to put a face with the individual, that's all.
Well, Nate was always really good with coming to meetings. I'm sure Travis will be too.
Yeah.
I'm
I
sure,
think-
I'm not specifically speaking of Travis, just
Okay.
the individual, that's all.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Number three, a local law, number 3 of 2019, a local law to amend Chapter 179 of the Fredonia Village Code entitled Housing Standards. This was reviewed again from our planning board and sent forward for the Board of Trustees approval.
I have some questions or clarifications, just, defining managing agent, who, says, and under the direction and control of superior authority, would that be the village? Do you have any idea, Dan, who that might be?
Chuck?
For the definition of managing agent, and it says direction and
Yes, the-
control of
The
superior
chair of the
authority.
planning board to respond to that. He's here, Scott McKay.
Oh, Scott.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The purpose of that is to deal with a number of our landlords who are not in the immediate area and are difficult to reach. And we don't have a means of taking care of issues that arise in the properties. So we're requiring people, or owners, who are outside the immediate area, and I believe we settle on 2 counties, to have a local agent. Now, it's already, seems to be pretty much common in the village already. We have a number of, managers of various properties. So the superior authority is the individual, the landlord. It's kind of delegated to
Okay.
this individual here, and he's acting on behalf of the landlord. So we have somebody to deliver service to, we have somebody to go to when there's a big issue and they're in, a serious violation, when the code enforcement officer is looking at their certificate of occupancy, we can deal with it locally and not have to reach out to New York City.
So that's managing agent.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. What, you're still up, sir? Portable extinguishers. I was at the board, your planning board meeting, and you had made a correction of a antiquated, there was a situation there, and it says, fire extinguishers are 2 round bottom pails filled with sand. I mean, it's not a big deal, but that was just one more thing that I,
That's a carryover.
okay, so it's not a super big. So do we need to pass a resolution to make this in its final form tonight?
And in table.
You'd be asking for a public hearing tonight.
We just table it, we just be a
It'd be
motion to
tabled.
table for a public hearing before the next meeting.
But do we need to resolve that this is in its final form?
It's not in its final form because we're gonna be tabling
Not
it
till
for
after
the
the
open
public hearing.
meeting.
But
Because there's
don't
a
we need to
possibility, so-
don't we need to give the public the
Yes.
That's what the
law
public-
in its final form?
The
That's-
law that it is right now will be what the subject of the public hearing is, okay? And then if there are any changes other than, say punctuation, typos, things like that, it would need to be represented to the public. What we're voting to table and present to the public at the next meeting is as it is drafted right now.
So it is not in its final form per se, possibly.
It might or might not be,
Possibly.
that's correct.
There's the potential, but likely it is.
Okay.
Okay, number 4, intro to local law number 4 of 2019, amending village codes / charter to remove administrator. Any questions on that?
Yes, trustee Linden, I see that you and trustee Christina are co-sponsoring this. It says the village desires to return its code to pre-2016 state. Who desires this?
What-
Okay, thank you.
And so did I. And so do I.
Okay. Okay. So, that's why you're sponsoring it, okay.
Yep.
Originally, the word administrator was not in the document, correct?
Right. And
In which document are we talking about? In our
In
charter?
the charter.
The administrator was, wasn't it before the pre-2016?
anyhow,
It was the 2016 local law number 7.
Okay,
That added the administrator language in a couple places in the code. That was the one that we can be sure of the date on, because we have the local law and we also have the footnote in the code itself. Other references did not have footnotes, so those would have been pre-2016, the assumption is, but you can't put an exact date to it.
okay.
So once again, this will, there'll be a request to table this resolution for a call for public hearing. So I'll give you 2 weeks to
Just
to
one-
read and understand what, what's going on, and so we gotta look,
Okay.
if there's any more questions, we can, at the public hearing.
I said one other clarification. It says, whereas the creation of the position of village administrator would have required a public referendum instead of a mere resolution if that position was to hold any power. Dan, when we resolved to rescind it, you had stated it was simply created with a resolution, and it was simply resolved by a resolution. If it would have needed a public referendum to create it, I would assume it would have needed a public referendum to rescind it.
But it didn't have a public referendum to create it, and the general rule is it has to be rescinded in the same manner that it was created. So if the resolution, there were issues with that, the board chose last June or
July.
July,
to rescind that resolution. That part of it is ended. This is largely taking out the references from the rest of the code. I did search the code several times. I think I've got them all. This was a recommendation from NICOM that's several months old in terms of if the board made the decision to rescind, that we should go through and clean up the language.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then we have old business, and we did come we have the, under old business, we have the repair to the generator for the police department downstairs that we have. If you want to take a look, if you took a look at that and you want any questions, we could do that now. The resolution will be prepared for next week, or in 2 weeks. If you have any thoughts on that now, or you could, like I said, the resolution will be,
We just received the one
we
quote.
just, that's all we have.
Is it under the procurement policy? We only don't have to get the 3 quotes for that, or?
Yeah, I have not seen the quote that we received.
But if it was under a certain amount,
Yes.
we didn't have to get.
I'm trying to, let's see. Purchase contracts, goods and services, estimated value of less than 3,000 are not subject to procurement policy. So goods and services, so it would be subject to the
Yeah.
procurement policy of?
Okay, but I think you're looking at the old procurement policy. That's the old policy.
It's
Yeah.
higher now.
Yeah, it's been, it was raised to, I want to say it was, huh? No, on the purchase, no, it was raised from 3 to 10, I believe. Like I said, I have not reviewed this quote. I haven't seen it till just now. Wants to come in today?
Where's Brad? Brad was here.
Yeah, and with Brad on vacation, what I'd like to do is just,
Okay.
if we're gonna put it on hold, and we can't act on it until the next meeting anyway,
Right.
I didn't prepare anything.
So we'll put that on hold.
Maybe
Thank
by
you.
then we'll might get another quote.
I don't know where they are in the process right now, I apologize.
Okay.
And then under new business.
Oh, hold on, Jim, I have one other thing under old business.
Under old business? Sure.
Yes. A couple of weeks ago, I requested some information regarding moving the street light that we passed a resolution back in February. Tony said it was on Niagara Mohawk's or National Grid's radar to move that street light on Central Avenue. I did reach out to them, both phone call and email, and I still have not received an answer back
Okay.
when they're gonna be moving that street light in front of the college. So I just wanna follow up with the board and let them know that that information has been sent out and we still have not moved that street light as of today.
Should anyone ask? Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else under old business? Okay. Under new business, we have a presentation from Amanda Linge with Wendell for additional professional services, construction manager and advisor.
Mayor Landis asked me to come down today along with Jennifer Hill, an architect from Wendell.
Can we use this microphone, please?
Is that better?
Your name?
Just to talk about the project to date, go over the bidding process, and then talk about some next steps. So I'm not sure how much you guys are aware of the bidding process, but I'll start at the beginning and then answer any questions you guys might have. So this is the fire hall building envelope renovations. We put this project out to bid at the end of June. We put it on Avalon Plan Room, and we monitor how many contractors are downloading this project. Prior to the pre-bid meeting, we only had one contractor take a look at it, but we had various plan rooms downloaded that were also distributing this as well. So we held a pre-bid meeting on July 10th that Jennifer went down to, and no contractors showed up for it. So coming back from that, we began reaching out to contractors to drum up some interest. We reached out to about 10 contractors. We put out an addendum and actually held an additional pre-bid meeting on July 16th, which again, no contractors showed up for. After that, we came back, we regrouped, we called those 10 contractors again, and then an additional 7 contractors. We felt that we had some interest. Some contractors were asking questions. They seemed like there was going to be a viable bid. We extended the bid date with another addendum, and no bids came in. From that point, we know that one of the major concerns of Mayor Landis and Chief Walker was getting this project completed this year, just due to the condition of the building itself and making sure that it didn't deteriorate anymore over the winter. So we came up with a couple options moving forward, which is in your packets there. We introduced those to Mayor Landis. There is a rebid because we did have, at the time, one viable contractor who said that he would, if it was rebid, he would bid on the project. And then there was another contractor who said, yeah, probably, I'll bid on it. So, so if we did that, there was a chance that we would get at least one bid on it. It wasn't the best news at the time. We also had an option of going through Wendell Construction and actually working with the contractors to see if we could get another contractor interested and actually go through and negotiate prices with them and have them possibly bid against each other. We found another contractor who was interested in the project, and so now we have two viable contractors that we are having them compete against each other a little bit to bring their prices down. So now we have two contractors that are interested in it, and we're looking at those prices to see what we can get for you guys.
Isn't the idea of the bidding process so that when they put their bids in, they're estimating the costs on their own, and that we could select the lowest bidder, not to have the idea that they could come forward with a higher cost than what was estimated by your company. So the idea that we would come in with a lower cost, I mean, but for them to come in after the bids have been put out and now say, well, we're interested, it doesn't seem quite.
Right, and part
Right.
of going with Wendell Construction was having a waiver, which is part of that package. Mayor Landis asked us to put that together. The waiver says that, we tried. We made a very good effort. We did everything we could to try to get a bid. We reached out to various contractors many times.
When you reached out to them, what was their response, why they did not bid? Or do they have a reason why? Was there something in the project that they can't handle? Was it a?
Yeah, some of them said that they were more specialized. They didn't want to be a GC for the entire project. Some of them just too busy to get it all done by the end of the year, which was one of the requirements
Right,
that we
okay.
held.
I was just curious to see, what some of the excuses may have been, maybe that.
Yeah, and the one contractor that was interested said he just missed the last addendum that had the extension of the bid date.
Gotcha.
That was the reason.
What are your thoughts on if we do award a bid here coming up, that they the construction company can handle the project before the winter season starts? It seems like too late. I think a lot of the contractors would be filled up with projects already.
Well, if we rebid the process, it's obviously going to take a little bit longer because you're going to have to go through the advertisement for bid, the bidding, the notice of award, having a board approve it. So it'll take a little bit more procedurally before we get to the actual submittals. If we go through Wendell Construction, then we can actually work with the contractors, maybe even because of relationships, start those submittals a little bit earlier. It's really the lead time on the metal panels that is pushing the schedule.
I'd also like to add to that. So, the insulated metal panels that we're proposing to put around the building, it's got an 8 to 10 week lead-in time, and that doesn't start until the manufacturers get the approved submittal. So usually it can take a good month to get a submittal review process done with shop drawings and everything else. What we're trying to offer with Wendell Construction is that we can start that process right away, because we have a good relationship with a lot of the contractors, and they're prepared to start putting shop drawings together once we get the go-ahead from you guys that you'd like to go in that form. So it's trying to speed up the construction process of so we can get the work done before we get into January and February. At the moment, it is looking like it's going to be November, December before they get on site. But if we go to rebid, then, you know, you're pushing it out to January, February, that weather is definitely not suitable. So then you're looking into sort of next year, and you've got the building going through a whole nother winter session. So we're trying to help you guys speed along the process, as well as the fee to go with it.
So Wendell Construction would oversee to what extent in this then, as far as where we are with contract now? So if Wendell Construction then oversees and works with the builder?
Yes, the contract would be with the general contractor would have a contract with the Village of Fredonia, but Wendell Construction would oversee everything. We would facilitate the contract, we would oversee the construction, we would review all submittals.
And completion of the project?
Yep,
I mean,
punch
that's-
list, the closeout of the project, everything.
Okay,
So
and
would you supply a clerk of the works or somebody, is that the?
Yeah, we would have a part-time inspector.
Okay.
So it would be, we estimated 12 hours a week, someone to come down here.
Okay.
12 hours a week for a 2-month period. That's what the construction period would be, we're estimating.
Treasurer
And
has a question. The treasurer has a
I'm
question.
sorry.
Is that okay?
I was just wondering if you had thought of separating the roofing work from the stucco work. I mean, they don't seem to be kind of compatible.
Because that was my first question too.
Unfortunately, we can't do that. The detailing where they flash the roof up on the wall is completely wrong. When we take the old stucco off, we're going to be disturbing the roof flashing, so we have to do the roofing work as part of the removal of the old stucco. We've looked into it, and there's just no way of not doing that roofing work.
I'm not suggesting that you not do the roofing work. I'm suggesting that, did you look into the idea of having 2 separate bids, one for the roofing work and one for the stucco? So they wouldn't need a general contractor to,
Well, the trick with that is the coordination between those 2 contracts.
Yeah.
So a GC gives us and Wendell Construction gives you the extra benefit of being on that coordination right away. If you have 2 separate contracts, now the roofing contractor can say, okay, I'm not going to be there until X date, and the wall panel can say, okay, I'm not going to be there until this other date, and now you're trying to work that out.
That could also.
If we do it
slow
all
down.
under
That could
one,
slow it down.
if we do it all under one, then that's the control that you have between those 2 subs.
okay, just ask the question.
And we did include a breakdown of the fee and schedule differences in the memo there. And if you guys have any questions on those, you can definitely let us know.
I'm just curious, is this a typical occurrence, or is this unusual to not have any bids?
It's unusual, but it's been more usual lately. And maybe that's because it's towards the end of the year and contractors have more of, they've bid out and that they're more, they have the rest of their year planned out. So it could be some of that, but yeah, to have no bids, we were a little shocked by that, especially with all the outreach that we did.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And we'll have a consideration for that at the next meeting for the board. Thank you. This be the time,
Jim,
oops, I'm sorry.
I got one other thing
Oh,
for
sure.
new business. I recently received a correspondence from Colleen Yurko, who did our baskets this year. Hope everyone had an opportunity to see how beautiful they look downtown. So she wanted to reach out to the board and let them know this is the time that she starts ordering for next year's baskets. So I'd like to get together with the board. She's going to come up with some color designs and some pricing so she can get the flowers ordered for next year. She also mentioned in there that our baskets, our wire baskets, should be replaced due to the age and condition that they're in. She feels that it would be time to probably order new baskets, so I'll get a hold of Tony to see how many new baskets we need. I did get a quote from Planters Unlimited. This is through the Dunker project. The correspondent down there let me know that this is where they order their baskets. Colleen recommends that we use the same type of baskets because it's held up very well over the years. So I'll get this information to you guys, and I'd like to see us order up the flowers and the baskets for next year as soon as possible.
Do they have a timeline on when they need?
She
gets
gave
in?
us within a month or two here, she'd like to get the stuff ordered for next year, so.
So within the?
Yeah, we have plenty of
within-
time.
Okay, within next, maybe say September.
Right now, it looks like $54.85 for the wire baskets. A piece.
How many?
And it's like $22 for the liner replacements. And again, I don't know the number of baskets we have hanging in the village, but I'd like to see that we get, enough, and possibly a couple extras, but. And then the flowers themselves, she's working up a price depending on the type of flowers and also the color designs, which was pretty close to the average that we've been paying over the years, so I don't see a change in that.
Would you say I would just figured out for 50 baskets would be about $3,800. So I don't know. I have no idea how many hanging baskets we have, but at 50, that's the kind of rough cost estimate.
And with shipping, you don't know what time, how much
Okay,
shipping and stuff.
roughly 4,000.
Right. I just wanted to bring it in front of the board and let them know that this is something that I received.
Thank you. Anything else under new business? No? Okay, this would be the time and place for the public portion.
This portion of the meeting is for public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak, once recognized, shall stand and state their name and address. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes if speaking for themselves, or 5 minutes if speaking on behalf of a group. I will ask the speakers to refrain from remarks that are in poor taste, slanderous, or not germane to any action taken or contemplated by the board.
My name
Yes.
is Jan Kaminsky. I'm the logistics chairperson for the Fredonia Farm Festival. I'm here to address inappropriate behavior by your code enforcement officer. He approached us Thursday afternoon in the gazebo as we were checking vendors. I have my vendor chairperson here, Anita Ray, Jen Mackey, who was also present. Verbal harassment went on and on. All these vendors continued to hear this information concerning the food truck people, which had nothing to do with my vendor chairperson. From there, he came down to this end of the park and verbally threatened one of our food vendors. I also have my food chairperson here, Mr. Thompson, who was witness to this. I'm asking for an apology. I don't think it was handled properly. I would have picked up the phone, called Mark Mackey or Larry, who are the chairpersons for these committees, and asked, I have a situation or a problem. We need to talk this through and get it worked out amicably for our 3-day event. Thank you.
Sure.
Two people that were threatened to be taken out of the farm festival were people that had no permits. And that's what my job is. I'm sorry if I ruffled feathers. I'm sorry if I offended anybody. But there was 2 mobile trailers that had no permits. So either they had to come in and get permits, which we waived some of the rules for them, or they had to leave. Simple as that. We couldn't do background checks because it was the 12th hour. So, yeah, it's kind of upsetting because I can't do my job properly when evidently they weren't told or somehow they were here and didn't have their proper permits. So that's how it went. And I don't know who's in charge of food. I went to the gazebo where their main headquarters were and talked to the people there. So if I ruffled feathers, I apologize, but that's my job.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Mr. Drayle?
Sam Drayle, village resident. Have to sit down.
for two local laws that are up for consideration. One is on the housing, which I haven't read. It's just, these resolutions should be in their final form, read by the Board of Trustees, digested, and I'm just wondering, I don't think that's been done because this just came out within the last couple days. Yet you're calling for a public hearing on something that isn't in its final form, and that the board hasn't agreed to. Am I correct on that?
No, that would be incorrect. The laws, to the best of our knowledge, at this time are in final form.
But the board hasn't had an opportunity to read it. This just came out.
This is just for the introduction. Next, it would be tabled for 2 weeks, which, and you know, Sam, we got to have a public hearing and then they vote at that time. So the board's got 2 weeks to look at everything. But tonight's just being tabled. That's it.
Dan, I have to disagree with you.
That it's being
The
tabled?
resolution is not in its final form. A local law needs to be in its final form, read and agreed to by the board. They then call for a public hearing to get public input. They can, after the public hearing, change it, not adopt it the way it is, but it should be in its final form and read and approved by the board before you call for a public hearing. That hasn't been done, to my knowledge, with either local law. Now, the item I would like to address is the proposed changes that are set forth regarding the charter. I'm sorry.
Sorry, the gentleman has the floor, please.
The mayor had a letter that she read entitled "Truth Lies in a Law That Never Was," and contained, in my opinion, 3 major matters which I disagree with and need to be corrected. One is the mayor asserted that there should have been a public referendum, a vote by the people to establish the position of village administrator because there was a transfer.
Excuse me, Sam, just 1 second. I can start again if you don't mind. And we'll give him the time back. If you're directing to the mayor your comments, I might ask that you have the courtesy to wait and direct it to her when she is here. But you have every right to speak today and at any other time. But I just want to ask that if it was directed to her, that you would have that courtesy.
And I understand that, and I'd be glad to present this again, but you've got this motion up in front of you tonight.
Okay, go ahead.
And she's not here. That's not my problem.
I just wanted to ask that.
Yeah.
Thank you. You give it back his time.
But you understand
the
that
rest
you've got
of
a
his
motion
time.
in front of you that I need to speak to.
That's
The fact
like
that
I
she
said.
isn't
Like I
here
said,
doesn't preclude me from speaking
no.
to her.
Like I said, you have every right to say everything. I just want to extend that courtesy, and the clerk will give you the remainder of your time.
Okay. And this may take more than 3 minutes, Mr. Chairman.
3 minutes is basically up, so it's your decision on what you want to do.
Limit to 3 minutes.
This is a very important matter that I consider. It concerns a position in the village which is probably the most important position. And sometimes it takes more than 3 minutes to explain things. I'll try to go quickly, but this
Limit
needs
it
to
to 3 minutes.
Point of order.
I'm
Is there
sorry.
any other public person out there who would like to speak tonight? By a show, is there anybody else that would like to speak? One? Okay.
Doug, I mean,
Could you,
if the gentleman would like to speak, the clerk has timed his opportunity to speak, and it did extend, or past that time. So if someone else would like to speak in the public portion, may they be acknowledged.
They want to speak now, and they can go ahead of me if they'd like.
Hi, Dave Ferdman. I just wanted to say thank you to Festivals Fredonia for putting on a great weekend. I think everybody that came out had a great time. I know I did. So thank you very much. Great job.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public portion is now closed.
Hold on here. Well, I wanted him to proceed, so I didn't hold him up. I wanted him to talk and give his piece. So I'd like to continue.
The
I would
pub-
like to disagree with Trustee Paris. If nobody else is willing or offering to speak on the public portion, and we still have some time here, I see no problem, but that's my thought.
The public
Trustee Paris.
portion has, each individual has 3 minutes to speak, and the public portion is for that time limit, and I'd like to hold it to that. If you'd like to come back the next
I
meeting,
think that's
please.
being very arbitrary. There are certain
It is.
manners in this village that are important. And for you to sit there and
Yes.
say you
I'm sorry.
only have 3 minutes
I'm
is
sorry.
arbitrary.
Ray, I'd like to give him my 3 minutes.
No, just leave it, let it go.
I want to, I'll give him my 3 minutes.
Can- I'm going to recommend that Mr. Drayo speak on behalf of the group here, and he has a total of 5 minutes.
All right, one of the reasons that the mayor asserted there should have been a public referendum in order to enact the position of village administrator was that it was a transfer of power from the board to the administrator. That was the reason she gave in her letter. I'd like to know what power it was that was transferred from the board to the village administrator, because there weren't any. There wasn't any powers transferred from the village board to the village administrator. The village administrator was established to assist the village board in carrying out its duties. It simply gave additional duties to the clerk treasurer. In fact, Section 4 of the 1967 and the 77 resolution establishing the position of village administrator specifically stated the following: nothing herein contained shall be deemed or construed as abolishing, curtailing, transferring any powers or duties of the Board of Trustees. So no powers from the board got transferred to the village administrator. The board continued to approve contracts, hire people, make rules and regulations and laws, and set policy for the village. None of that was transferred to the village administrator. So the reason that a public referendum should have been called has no validity at all. The mayor also stated that the village stepped out of the boundaries of the charter because the charter did not authorize the creation of the position of village administrator. That statement is not correct. It's not the case. In the charter, the general duties of the trustees states, "It shall be the duty of the trustees to make such bylaws, laws, rules, and regulations not inconsistent with the provisions of the state constitution as they deemed necessary to carry out the provisions of this act," meaning the charter, "and other laws and ordinances, rules and regulations applicable to the village." And, this is the important part, the powers vested in any officer or employee. The charter goes on to state that the trustees shall have the power to prescribe the powers and duties of all officers and persons appointed by them to any office or place whatsoever, and to direct the time and manner in which such officers or persons shall perform their respective duties. Thus, a local law was not necessary to amend the charter to create the position of village administrator. The charter itself, which is a special act of the state of New York, gave that authority to the board to make rules they deemed necessary to carry out the provisions of the charter. It also gave authority to the village board to prescribe the powers and duties of any office of the village. That's in our charter. Subdivision 20 and 22 are part of our charter, and they grant broad powers to the village board. No local law is required to implement them, and the position of village administrator could be implemented by board resolution. Even under the state village law, which we're not under, the position of village administrator could be established by resolution. Section 4-412 of the village law states the Board of Trustees may create or abolish by resolution offices and delegate so much of its powers and duties and functions as it deems necessary. In summary, summarizing the above, the position of a village administrator is not contrary to the state constitution or any other law and was validly established. The mayor's claim that under an 1897 law, she had additional powers which are given to the mayor under the state village law is not correct. The 1897 law, which the mayor claims gives her additional duties, specifically states that it does not apply if the powers of the mayor under the state law are inconsistent with the village charter. The charter restricts the authority of the mayor to only 3 duties: voting in case of a tie, conducting board meetings, and making sure the laws of the village are obeyed. Adding additional duties to the mayor would be inconsistent with the village charter, which clearly restricts the duties of the mayor. To give more powers to the mayor would require a mandatory referendum, as it would curtail the duties of the village board under our charter. Also, section 2, I'm going to omit the section numbers. There's a section of the village law that went into effect in 1973, specifically stating that the village law shall not be deemed, I'm quoting this now, shall not be deemed to repeal or otherwise affect the provisions of any village charter. Thus, the village charter is not affected by any provisions of the village law unless the village board of trustees amends the charter to make provision of the state law apply to the village. Therefore, any authority of the mayor granted under state village law does not apply to the Fredonia village mayor. The mayor under the charter is limited to the 3 powers granted under the charter unless the village board changes that in accordance with law. The mayor alleges that the word administrator never appeared in the charter.
The 5 minutes are up, Sam, I'm sorry. Your 5 minutes are up.
I'd like to continue this. This is important. This
Please
concerns
terminate
our
the
form of
discussion.
government.
Write a letter to the Observer.
Yeah.
Trustee Barris, let's be a little more professional.
I beg your pardon.
Please,
No need to raise your
as
voice.
Chairman of the
I
board,
think
please.
you're being really arbitrary. You need to hear this. This is important.
I'll be happy to read it in the Observer.
Well,
Thank
I'd
you
like
so
to
much.
say it here so it gets into the press and gets on the broadcast.
This was the public portion. You've had your personal time, you've had the time portion for a group. Thank you.
Open-minded,
Thank you very
Chairman.
much. Thank you very much. Is there any other comments? Any other statements? Anyone else? We'll close the public portion. Have the mayor's report, she's absent. The trustees' reports. I want to say the hats off to the festivals committee and everyone involved with the farm festival. It's undeniable a great success. There was a great attendance, and we thank everyone that was involved. That's my Trustee Christina?
No, I just also like to say the Farm Festival was wonderful. The weather was good, lots of great music. Seemed like a lot of people were having a great time, so thank you for all of your hard work.
Okay. Trustee Essek?
Yes, I would like to also add to that. You know, you don't realize the volunteers that put all these festivals on, not only the Farm Festival, but every festival. And I was at the Farm Festival the majority of the 3 days, and it was just an awesome effort. I give them kudos. The village should be doing whatever we can to assist them to make this and continue it to be a successful event and any other events. So thank you very much, everybody who volunteered. It was super.
Trustee Britz?
I would also like to thank the committee. I also was part of the committee, and I now understand the number of hours that it takes out of your personal life to put something like this together. Mark Mackey and his wife and the crew did a phenomenal job this year. Turnout
Yes, they
was
did.
better than expected. Vendors were happy. People were happy.
Yeah,
The parade
they
seemed to
were.
go off without a hitch. Other than the horse getting loose on the campus, we were good, we were good. But again, now being part of this committee and spending a year with these folks, they work very, very, very hard.
Yes, they do.
And kudos to all of you.
Kudos.
You did a fantastic job, and thank you. We hope that in the future, we can help as a community to move this festival larger, and we have some great ideas for next year, and always looking for volunteers. So feel free to anyone that wants to join us. Many hands make the workload a little lighter, so thank you.
Thank you.
One other thing, I'd like to mention that next week school's open. I want everyone to take a little extra time, be aware of their surroundings. Be a lot new residents jumping on the school buses, so let's start paying attention to the laws. and being aware of our little citizens.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Barris?
Yeah, I have two items. This afternoon, I represented the village at the naming ceremony for the Arts Center Green Room. It is now the K. Hardesty Logan Green Room in the Rockefeller Performing Arts Center. Item number two is last week, I toured 7 streets in the village of Fredonia, which are experience the emergency water line replacement. And it appears to me now that the work is essentially done. There are trenches on Middlesex, Birchwood, Carroll, Cottage, Pleasant, James Place, and Lambert. There are new fire hydrants on the sections where they are. So I did not see any evidence of extensions under the railroad to the main, which extends from the Vineyard pumping station to Main Street. So does anyone have any information about extensions to that water line under the railroad?
Dr. Barris, if I could.
Yes.
Those, because of issues getting CSX approval, our architect engineer decided to move those to the second phase of the project. So they are on the way, is my understanding. And last time I knew, they were still in discussions with National Grid, or not National Grid, I apologize, CSX. Thank you.
Indeed.
Okay. We have the treasurer's report. Anything?
To mention, the annual update document that goes to the state is due on Friday, and it will be filed in a timely fashion. And then you'll receive a copy for the next board meeting to review and approve. Also, on Friday, we'll have our bond bid opening on the bonds. We'll find out what the interest rates are. The closing will take place the middle of September. So, that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Building inspector's report.
Code enforcement month-end report for July 2019. Building permits issued 28, inspections 17, certificates of occupancy 13, certificates of compliance 12, violations found 13, violations satisfied 10, permit fees collected $3,779, rental fees $3,330, certificate of compliance $350, zoning variances $150, for a total of $7,609. Rental inspections 23, rental renewals 28. Junk car property maintenance found 5 junk cars and 8 property maintenance inspections, removed 4 property maintenance and 3 junk cars. Annual fire inspections 20, appearance tickets 3, stop work orders 4. That concludes the code enforcement month report.
Thank you. Correspondence. Correspondence was received from Sterling R. Stearns, Assistant Principal of Fredonia High School, requesting a permission to hold a homecoming parade Friday, October 11th, 2019. Line up in front of the Village Hall at 5:45 p.m. The parade will start at 6 p.m. and proceed through Park Place, continuing on West Main Street onto the Orange Bowl football field.
Be it resolved at the request of Sterling Stearns, Assistant Principal of Fredonia High School, to hold a homecoming parade commencing in front of the Village Hall, Church Street, proceeding south through Park Place, then west on Main Street, ending at the Orange Bowl football field on Friday, October 11th, 2019, beginning at 6 p.m. in accordance with his letter received August 13th, 2019, is hereby approved, subject to the direction of the Fredonia Police Department and the approval of the New York State Department of Transportation.
I second the resolution.
Trustee Christina?
Yes.
Trustee Asic?
Yes.
Trustee Britz?
Yes.
Trustee Dr. Barris?
Yes.
And Trustee Linden votes aye. Resolutions. Whereas the village requires basic economic development services, and whereas Urban Vantage LLC has offered to perform said services from September 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019 for a fee of $8,333.33 plus reasonable expenses. And whereas economic development services are professional services and do not require public bidding pursuant to paragraph 6A of the village's procurement policy. Therefore, be it resolved, the mayor is hereby authorized and directed to enter into an agreement with Urban Vantage LLC for basic economic development services.
I second the resolution.
Trustee Christina?
Yes.
Trustee Essek?
Yes.
Trustee Britz?
Without receiving the contract to review, I'm going to have to vote no.
Trustee Dr. Barris?
Aye.
And Trustee Linden votes aye.
Intro to local law number 3-20919, Village of Fredonia, a local law to amend chapter 179 of the Fredonia Village Code entitled Housing Standards, be it enacted by the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia of New York as follows. It is the intent of this local law to amend chapter 179 of the Fredonia Village Code.
I make a motion to table for a public hearing.
It's at the very end of the resolution, if you want to just read that out loud.
It's 9 pages in.
Be it resolved that this local law is tabled for a public hearing on September 9th, 2019 at 6:30 PM.
I second that. Trustee Christina?
Yes.
Trustee Essek?
No.
Trustee Britz?
Yes.
Trustee Dr. Barris?
Aye.
And Trustee Linden votes aye. Whereas the resolution purporting to create the position of village administrator was rescinded on July 29th, 2018, and whereas the creation of the position of village administrator would be required public referendum instead of a mere resolution, if that position was to hold any power. And whereas the purported authority to combine the position of clerk and treasurer into a treasurer clerk or village administrator did not even exist in the code until local law 7 of 2016. And whereas no public referendum regarding the position was ever afforded to the people of the village. And whereas the term village administrator was subsequently added to several areas of the village code, and whereas the village desires to return its code to its pre-2016 state, therefore be it resolved, the village code is hereby amended to remove all references to the village administrator as follows.
I move that we table this for a public hearing at the next meeting.
I'm sorry? Okay. Be it resolved that this local law is tabled for a public hearing on September 9th, 2016 at 6:30 PM.
I second that.
Trustee Christina?
Yes.
Trustee Essek?
No.
Trustee Britz?
No.
Trustee Dr. Barris?
Aye.
And Trustee Linden votes aye. Motion is carried.
There's no further business. I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
Trustee Christina?
Yes.
Trustee Essek?
Yes.
Trustee Britz?
Yes.
Trustee Dr. Barris?
Aye.
And Trustee Linden votes aye. Thank you.